Hi guys, welcome back to Neverblower Homestead. My name is Raul, and in this video I'm going to tell you a bit about the challenges I faced this year and the solutions I came up with that I'm going to try next year. So let's dive in. So the biggest issue I faced this year was managing the cold of the winter and the heat of the summer. Here in the high desert, we have relatively cool winters where there's frost and even sometimes a little bit of snow, but then we also have quite hot and intense summers with temperatures in excess of 100 degrees Fahrenheit or about 38 degrees centigrade. So what this meant was that certain plants that can't handle the cold very well, but also can't handle a lot of intense heat, like tomatoes, they don't work very well. So I had to figure that out. The solution that I've come up with, in particular for my tomatoes, is that I need to plant them earlier. I need to start them indoors really early and then plant them as soon as I possibly can into the ground. So sort of right when the last frost is about to be. So for us, that's toward the end of March. And I've got to plant them right then, and then hopefully they will have progressed far enough that they'll be able to fruit before the intense heat hits in June. And speaking of heat, one of the other things that we have to deal with here is how everything dries out really quickly. So in order to combat that, this past year already, I started by making my beds in-ground beds. Raised beds out here in the desert tend to dry out faster than if you have in-ground beds. And I also did mulch on top of my beds, and this helped to really keep the moisture in so that I didn't have to water as often as if I had raised beds and I didn't have mulch. Another thing that I'm going to do to try to combat the heat and the intense sun is I'm going to put shade cloth up here. And one of the reasons why I chose this spot in particular for my garden was because it provides a little bit of shelter with the shipping containers, but I also already had these beams up and I can just put some shade cloth over and that should help me during the summer just protect the plants from the worst of that intense sun. One of the other issues that I had this year was that I actually was quite late in everything that I started. So my brassicas and actually almost everything went in far too late. The things that did work out, the things that did survive were hardy enough, but I still had an issue with everything because I planted it too late. I was fooled by our really mild May, and that I thought, I've got a bit more time, I can handle it, and that wasn't the case. I really shouldn't have depended on it. I should have rather taken advantage of the cool May so that my vegetables could grow for longer in that cooler weather and mature faster, because the sun, as soon as we get the heat, it really seems to like stunt their growth. So next year I mean, you know, I have an excuse for that, as it were, in that I was still digging the beds and things, but next year I'm going to definitely be planting everything as early as I possibly can. One of the other things that really helped me out, and I was too late for it, was the irrigation. I had been talking about setting up my own automated irrigation for a long time this year, and only when like most of the garden was over did I actually install it. And it wasn't actually that expensive. I think my total costs for what I have was about $100. I know that the timer was about $30 and the rest of it was about $50 to $60. So really it was less than $100. And I'm kicking myself in the pants. I really should have gotten it in earlier, because what it gave me was a regular watering. I was not watering very regularly when I was doing it manually, and I really should have been. So yeah, I've already got this installed now, so next year will obviously be different, but it's a lesson that I've learned this year, was that I do need to water often. I need to make sure I don't water too much or too little. There were issues that I ran into this past year when I was watering manually, because I'd forget the water on, or I'd forget to water for a particular day. Some days I'd water in the morning, some days I'd water at night. It was just so irregular that I think that the plants were just, it was messing them around. And hopefully with the automated irrigation next year, I should have a much better, and things should be much better. The last thing is that I really should have planted more. It's not a challenge, and it's not something I did wrong. It was just that in many cases, I underestimated how much I would get out of each crop and how much we would eat. And toward the end, we weren't eating as much as what we should have, especially because I had to harvest a bunch of stuff because of the tornado and other things like that. But I really should have planted more. I should have planted much more corn. I should have planted much more in terms of peas, lettuce. I mean, the lettuce, I need to think of a way of how I can do the lettuce year round, because we actually eat a fair amount of lettuce, and it was so great being able to pick lettuce out of the garden. But yeah, definitely I need to plant a lot more than what I did this year. Fill these beds up as full as possible, chock-a-block, and just so that we're making really good use of them. So yeah, plant more stuff. You're going to underestimate exactly how much you use, especially when it's right there. I mean, it was fantastic. So those are some of the challenges that I faced this year, and some of the solutions that I either implemented this year or will be looking at implementing next year. Thanks so much for joining me on this video. If you like this, please click the like button. Also, please consider subscribing if you haven't. I've got a bunch of videos, and I will have more videos next year on growing vegetables in the high desert, also some of the other stuff that I'm doing around the homestead. So I have new videos coming out every Monday, so please hit that subscribe button so that you can stay up to date with what I'm doing, and click the notification bell so that you get notified of when I post new videos. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.